Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the 2006 anime adaptation of Fate/Stay Night. Now, at first glance, this might look like your standard, run-of-the-mill magical battle royale packed with legendary warriors and flashy combat. But as we'll explore today, it's actually this incredibly deep, character-driven story about guilt, heroism, and the immense weight of holding on to our own ideals.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the Holy Grail War. Then we'll break down the masters and servants, take a look at the anime route focus, and finally, we'll unpack the burden of ideals.
Section 1. The Holy Grail War. Let's set up the incredibly high-stakes premise that kicks this entire narrative into gear.
So, the whole story revolves around what's known as the Fifth Holy Grail War. And listen, this isn't some public, out-in-the-open conflict. It's a highly secret, absolutely lethal battle royale happening right in the shadows of Fuyuki City. The core rules are simple but brutal. 7 mages who act as masters summon 7 legendary figures from history and myth to be their servants. These pairs fight it out until only one remains. The last pair standing claims the ultimate prize, a literal wish-granting artifact. The gravity here is absolute. It's a terrifying zero-sum game where losing almost always means losing your life.
Enter our main guy, Shirou Emiya. Shirou is just an earnest high school student trying to live his life in Fuyuki City. But more importantly, he is a total novice when it comes to being a mage. Unlike the other ruthless competitors who have spent their entire lives prepping for this exact tournament, Shirou is unexpectedly dragged right into this underground war. It's an abrupt plunge into total chaos. Imagine just trying to get through a normal week of high school, and suddenly you're pulled into legendary combat against mythical figures. It hooks you right away because he is just so entirely out of his depth.
Now you might be wondering, why doesn't he just run away? Well, 10 years prior to the events of the story, a massive, unexplained fire completely devastated his city. It claimed Shirou's family and nearly everything else he knew. That trauma is his emotional tether. He survived when so many others didn't, and that singular horrific event is what drives his absolute need to protect innocent people. He doesn't enter this deadly war for power or for some selfish wish. He's in it to ensure a tragedy like that fatal fire never, ever happens again.
Section 2. Masters and Servants. Now that we've got the rules of the war down, let's map out some of the key players fighting in this deadly tournament.
What's really fascinating here is how these masters are paired up with their servants, because it perfectly highlights some intense philosophical clashes. Take our novice, Shirou, who is defined by his extreme idealism and self-sacrificing nature. He ends up paired with Saber, the remarkably proud and stoic knight. On the flip side, we have Rin Tosaka. She's a highly talented, deeply pragmatic magus, and she's paired with Archer, a servant defined by his wildly cynical outlook. The friction is immediate, right? You've got Shirou's unyielding idealism rubbing right up against Rin's pragmatism and Archer's outright cynicism.
Let's look a little closer at Shirou's servant, Saber. When Shirou accidentally summons her, he brings forth this immensely powerful warrior who fights with a completely invisible blade. But her true identity is the real shocker. Saber is actually revealed to be none other than the legendary King Arthur, or in this universe's lore, Artoria Pendragon. Just think about the sheer scale of that for a second. A novice teenager with barely any magical training is suddenly in command of one of the most famous legendary monarchs in all of human history.
So, how do they actually survive these battles? Well, Shirou, being a total beginner, relies on highly specific projection and reinforcement magic. He basically enhances the structural integrity of objects or creates temporary copies of weapons. He is definitely the underdog. Rin Tosaka, on the other hand, is an absolute powerhouse. But surprisingly, instead of taking Shirou out, she steps up as an ally and a crucial mentor to him. And Rin's servant, Archer? Well, despite the name, he's incredibly versatile. He fights with dual swords just as effectively as he does with a bow. Honestly, Rin stepping into that mentor role is absolutely essential for Shirou to survive his first few encounters.
Section 3. The Anime Route Focus. Let's shift gears for a second and look at the unique structural quirks of Studio Deen's 2006 adaptation.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this specific anime operates. See, the original source material for Fate/stay night is a visual novel that contains 3 entirely different, diverging storylines, or routes. The 2006 anime primarily adapts the Fate route. This means it heavily centers on Shirou and Saber's developing romance, as well as their deep philosophical clashes about kingship and duty. However, Studio Deen didn't just stick to one single path. They actually incorporated mixed elements, pulling in plot lines and subplots from the other two visual novel routes, Unlimited Blade Works and Heaven's Feel. It's a really fascinating blend designed to give viewers a taste of the larger universe while keeping the emotional spotlight firmly glued to Saber and Shirou.
Now, I want you to just imagine the atmosphere this all creates. You literally cannot talk about this 2006 adaptation without bringing up its iconic soundtrack, composed by Kenji Kawai. Featuring famously haunting tracks like Disillusion and Anataga Itamori, the music injects this profound atmospheric weight into the series. It just perfectly captures the melancholy, the mystery, and the sheer epic scale of ancient mythos clashing right in the middle of a modern sleeping city. Section 4. The Burden of Ideals. For our final section, we're going to peel back the magical action to reveal the deep philosophical core of the story.
So here's a question for you. What is the true cost of striving to become a hero of justice? It sounds entirely noble on paper, right? But the anime uses its characters and its brutal setting to rigorously interrogate this concept, and the answers it uncovers are profoundly challenging.
Let's circle back to that fatal fire from 10 years prior. That catastrophic trauma is what fuels these deep themes. Shirou is suffering from a massive, crippling burden of survivor's guilt. Because he lived when thousands of others died, he honestly believes his life only has value if he uses it, or loses it, to save others. The anime constantly pits this idea of ideal self-sacrifice against the concept of inherent self-worth. Is it truly heroic to constantly throw your life into danger for total strangers, or is it just a destructive psychological coping mechanism? It really makes us ask if Shirou is genuinely a hero or just a broken kid trying to justify why he gets to be alive.
And the stakes of testing these ideals? They are heavily magnified by the people pulling the strings behind the curtain. Take Kirei Kotomin, for instance. He's a priest and the designated supervisor of the Holy Grail War. He is supposed to be the impartial referee keeping everyone in check. But actually, Kirei harbors some deeply dark, hidden motives. He's actively manipulating events from the shadows, making the war vastly more dangerous, especially for an earnest, idealistic kid like Shirou.
Which brings us to our final, pivotal thought. Knowing Kirei's dark motives are corrupting the very foundation of the war and seeing the immense psychological toll this battle takes on the participants, what is the true, ultimate cost of claiming the Holy Grail? Is a single wish really worth the absolute destruction of your own ideals and humanity? That is the profound question at the heart of the 2006 Fate/Stay Night anime. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity to dive into the source material and uncover the truth for yourself.